Good afternoon and welcome everyone to the last of our four-part webinar series on the prepared practice, expert advice on readying your office to reopen. My name is Pete Cerrone from Darby Dental Supply, and I'm also joined by my colleague Jeff Daly and Jim Gerson from CareStack, who will be moderating today. Today's session, Patient Conversations Post-COVID-19, will be hosted by Teresa, Duncan, and Lynne, Leggett. In case you missed our first three sessions, you can view recordings by visiting darbydental.com and clicking the link on the homepage. Before we get started, I'd just like to note that as an attendee, you are automatically set to mute. We encourage you to submit questions using the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen, and we'll aim to answer as many questions as possible by the end of the session. Without further ado, I'll hand it over to Jeff Daly from Darby.
Great, thanks so much, Peter, appreciate it. And thank you everybody for making time for today's presentation. We're excited to partner once again with CareStack, and this time along with Teresa from Odyssey and Lynne from Victory Dental Management in the fourth and final part of our webinar series as we try to help practices think about how to address some of the concerns patients may bring up as we reopen. So our quick commercial about Darby. What you may already know about Darby is that we partner with customers to help keep dental supply costs down. Over the past 10 years or so, we've also built a suite of solutions to help resolve some of the challenges that our customers tell us they face on a daily basis. Today, that suite of services includes IT services, mechanical equipment service, and a number of others. And finally, and most salient given the times, is just a reminder that for our entire 70-year history, all of our account managers have worked completely remotely with our customers. So that means no extra bodies walking into your practice. And we're happy to be able to say that we're 100% functional, that our team is working from the safety of their home and standing by to help dental practices in any way that we can. If you're interested in learning more about how we may be able to help your practice, please reach out to any one of our friendly and knowledgeable account managers, and they'd be happy to help. With that, I'll toss it over to my counterpart, Jim from CareStack.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. Jim Gerson here from CareStack, and I'll be today's moderator. Just a quick word about CareStack, where Darby is very familiar to most of you and they're in your daily dental vernacular. CareStack is probably not so familiar. We've been commercial here for a little over 2.5 years, and the company has been in formation since 2015. What's really important for you to take away from CareStack is that we are a 100% cloud-based system for the complete management of the dental practice. And we typically work with two types of clients. The first is a dental practice that's growing, but has concerns focused on providing a contactless experience for their patients when they reopen, and they see technologies enabling that, and they just don't know how to get there. They need a little bit of help. The second type of client is a practice that's grown frustrated and aggravated by managing many different subscriptions to run their business. For example, one for claims, another one for billing, another one for patient reminders, another one for analytics across their offices. The list goes on, and these offices have become fatigued by these subscriptions that really add to the overhead of running their business. So hopefully you represent or you fall into one of these two buckets today. And if that's the case, please, when you're done here, go to carestack.com to learn more and to request a demo. So without further ado, let's get to the academic portion of today's webinar, which is why everyone's here. And I'm going to quickly introduce our speakers. And so they can get started here in a moment. So let's first start with Teresa Duncan. So Teresa Duncan received her Master's of Science degree in Health Management from Marymount University and has worked in healthcare for over 20 years. She's been speaking on insurance and management issues for years and is a trusted resource on these topics. She belongs to many professional associations and writes for several industry magazines. Teresa's website has her complete background, and we're going to have it up here later. But what you need to know as an attendee is that she's in constant contact with many doctors and office managers, both clients and personal friends, and hears all sorts of dental office stories. In other words, she feels your pain. Teresa's here today to guide us through this brave new world. So please join me in welcoming Teresa Duncan. So moving on to Lynne Leggett. As a founder and CEO of Victory Dental Management, Lynne possesses over 25 years of business experience in several different industries: dentistry, medical, pharmacy, sales, transportation, logistics, and project management. And in her free time, she's a seasoned basketball coach, and she loves to help and encourage others. Lynne's passion is to help dental practices reach their full potential, increase their productivity and profitability, while enabling them to deliver the best patient care and customer service experience. Excuse me. As I mentioned earlier, Lynne is a coach. She's a consultant, speaker, and author. Importantly, she's a member of the Academy of Dental Management Consultants, the National Speakers Association, Speaking Consulting Network, ADOM Speakers Consultant Alliance, and a lifetime member and fellow of the ADOM. She frequently contributes articles for numerous dental publications. So without further ado, Lynne and Teresa, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you, Jim. I'm super excited, and Lynne is too. We are finally crossing over from what do we do now into what are we going to be expecting and what can we do in the future. I feel like we were just in kind of a panic mode for the last little bit, and that's what all the webinars were focusing on. So when we were asked to present this, I know we were just really excited on our brainstorming about what's coming up and what we can do to help you prepare. So it's just really nice to not be in, you know, oh my gosh, what's happening now mode. So let's go ahead and move forward. And what we wanted to share with you are the issues that you're going to face once you're reopening, and the issues that your patients are going to face coming back into your office. And so we wanted to give you some talking points, and then what we'd love for you to do is go back after this and have a meeting with the team, have a meeting with the doctor. If you're a manager, I'd meet with the doctor, then meet with the team. If you're a doctor, I would probably, as a business owner, sit down and really take a good look at the flow of patients through your practice, because that's really what we're going to be talking about. And this is a great opportunity for you to change everything you've ever wanted to change. So keep that in mind as we go through this. So for your teams, for the teams that are coming back into the office, what they're really looking for, and this is really evident in all of the conversations I've had, are clear protocols. And what that means is they want to know what they're doing and when they should be doing it, right? So some of the conversation starters that we're going to go over are going to be great for you to use in your team meetings. Now, the fear of the new normal is something that we are definitely running into. And I know, Lynne's in constant contact with her clients. And really, the new normal is just a catchphrase for what the heck are we doing now, right? The additional duties that are being assigned to people are pretty big, and they're completely brand new. All of this, we were not PPE experts going into it, but many of you feel like you're
right.
PPE experts coming out of it, right? So, all right, so let's talk about what the patients are going to expect. Now, we broke this up into two types of patients. We broke this up into your existing patients that are coming back in for recare, because it's a little bit more casual appointment, right? And then the other patients, which are your restoratives and even your new patients. Now, what we're seeing from recare patients is that they're really going to come in and they're going to be curious. They're going to take a look at everything you're doing, and they're going to want to talk about it, of course, because they want to know how you've been, and they want to know what it is that you're doing, and what's this glass for, and what's this, why are you wearing that hood, and all that. They're going to have so many questions for you. For your new patients and your restorative patients, they're going to be concerned with infection control, because this is the first time they really probably thought about it as far as coming to the dental office. We've been seen as a relatively safe office to go to, and now because of this COVID, we're getting a spotlight shined down on us, and so we do need to be ready for the questions that they're going to have, and we're going to go over that as well. Not many of our patients have heard about the risk from aerosols, so that's actually a blessing. But the ones who have are going to really want to talk about it, and of course, if they have any existing conditions, their immune issues, they're really going to want to talk about it. We're also going
Teresa,
to go over some of the. Oh, sorry.
Teresa, I just want to interject for 1 second. For question and answer, the strategy for today's webinar is that we're gonna put these in a parking lot and come and address them at the end. So I want to encourage people, because we've had some pop up already. Please use the Q&A, but understand that we're going to do this at the end of the presentation. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no, it's fine. It's fine. And I believe, Lynne, did you want to take some of these?
We can certainly talk about that, Teresa, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So the screening, and so we're going to go back and forth. So you guys are going to hear us kind of pass the ball back and forth a lot on these slides. So the screening protocol conversations, what we want to make sure is that your patients are feeling safe and then your team is feeling safe. I know that you have all heard the horror stories of team members not coming back and not wanting to come back. And that's part of allaying the fears of your employees. You know, some of our employees who have been with us 10 plus years, they're starting to second guess, and we really can't go in there and change minds, right? But we have to give it a shot, and we have to make them feel better about the job. We're pretty safe, we really are. And then the financial conversations, and we're going to go into the conversations we're going to have, but also the logistics, and this is where Lynne really shines. We're going to go over the logistics and how to do the process of it. And then the financial realities. The financial realities, let's be honest, everybody, a lot of people have lost their jobs. A lot of people are very tight with money. So where you were with treatment plan and financial presentations in January and February is not where you are now. And so that's something that we're going to need to talk about. The infection control protocol is interesting because we were kind of trying to figure out if we're going to talk about cross-training or cross-contamination. But what we really mean by that is, does everybody stay in, and does the patient stay in one operatory and then everybody kind of circles around them, or does the patient stay with one person? Because cross-training is usually what we do, and it's excellent, but there's been a lot of offices that want to just stick with one person to avoid cross-contamination. So we have to really have that conversation on patient flow, and you'll see as we go through just how important it is for everybody to know this ahead of time rather than trying to play catch up during the whole appointment.
You're exactly right, Teresa, because one of the things, I think the biggest thing that you can do is set up your patients for the correct expectations, because they're going to be potentially scared, like you mentioned, and they need to know step by step what they can expect when they get to your office, especially since there's so much change that's taken place. So when we talk on the phone, from a phone perspective, again, let them know, are you going to meet them in the parking lot? And much to what Teresa previously said, we're looking at this from a lot of different standpoints. Some offices are picking and choosing how they do this, and we're just giving you a myriad of things to be able to look at. Again, you've got to decide what's best for you and your team, but these are ideas for you to think about. And I'd like to also say that even if you've already opened, it's never too late to look at these again and change as you need to, because I think that's something that we're going to have to get used to, is being able to adjust constantly to what's happening. So if you're going to meet them in the parking lot and take their temperature, you have a choice of either emailing them a form to fill out or for them to arrive early to fill out that form. But if you're going to keep paper in the office, or if you're going to allow them to fill something out, either prepare yourself to order some more pens and give them as gifts from your practice, or be prepared to wipe them down, because that's not something that you really want to share back and forth. The other thing that I'll mention about this is I've had a lot of clients that have already opened, had this conversation of, well, what happens if patients are late? Because before COVID, we were able to maybe adjust our schedules accordingly to be able to help those patients that may be late to their appointment. You may want to rethink that as a team and decide if you're late because of the time that it's going to take to flip the room and different things, you may not have that flexibility. So again, it's something that you need to talk about on a case-by-case situation with your team. And if so, what are the parameters? Again, everybody needs to be prepared for that. And with CareStack, one thing I wanted to mention was they have a fabulous app that's part of their curbside check-in. And you can see from the slide that as soon as the patient pulls in, then you're able to log in and receive that reminder. They check in via text, again, contactless, right? They'll be going to be able to use technology to its fullest. And then the patients wait in their car until you come out and actually get them ready for their appointment. Okay, so let's talk about this. As soon as, again, technology, as soon as you are able to get the technology ready in your particular practice, take advantage of it. You can see here, we've already talked about as soon as you get off the phone with the patient, scheduling that appointment, maybe you go ahead and email them a link to be able to fill out forms online. But make it as easy as possible for your patients to be able to come and see you. Because for some, again, they're going to be really scared, and you want to be able to allay all the fears that they have. The other thing is some of your patients, let's be real, some of your patients are not going to be technology savvy, and some are not going to be able to fill out an online form. So you're going to need to have some sort of paper and be able to bring down that form, again, earlier than their appointment time, right? So you can give them plenty of time to fill that out. We're thinking maybe 10 to 15 minutes earlier might be the best idea. And if you're asking your patients to wait either in their car, in your lobby, or in a hall, or whatever the case may be, make sure that you take their temperature and document. And I know we talked about this a little bit earlier, but you should be documenting the temperature of your whole team so that you can have that in your record keeping in case something happens. You need to know that everybody is fit and ready to be prepared to work, but then let them know that you're going to escort them. And I think the biggest thing that Teresa and I want to share with you the most is look at all of your processes from a safety standpoint. Because if you make safety and patient care your priority, you cannot go wrong with this.
You know, Lynne, one thing I wanted to mention too, you mentioned the documentation, and I would urge you to check with your malpractice carrier because many of them already have these forms ready for you, or at least guidelines. So it's always a good practice to document to what your malpractice carrier wants you to document. That's standard. So I would definitely check their page and see if they have any guidance for you. Of course, the ADA has a toolkit, but I would rather you be safe than sorry and just get as much of the information as possible.
Sage advice, Teresa. Thank you.
So now that we're in the office, you know, what you need to do too is let the patient know what they're expecting to see. So one thing that they're going to see is you in a mask and you in these kind of beekeeper outfits, and it's going to be totally strange for them. We wanted to go over what it is that we should be prompting them for. And so one thing that we talked about was, do we have the hand washing and the sanitizer conversations with them from the beginning? Do we escort them to the bathroom to hand wash, or give them sanitize, you know, squirt at them as they walk in the door? What are we going to do in that situation? And then we have to figure out how to keep the waiting room clear. So I know Lynne and I were talking, and some of her clients' patients are being taken directly back to the operatory so that they don't sit in the waiting room. And, you know, she mentioned the fact that sometimes patients come in late, and there's always the patient that comes in from the car, and the first thing they're going to want to do is go to the bathroom because they were finishing like a big meal, Big Mac or something, and they were having their Diet Coke in the car and they need to get rid of that. So we have to figure out that protocol. It's very important. And then, Lynne, do you want to talk about the oral rinse? Because I know that's something that a lot of offices are incorporating.
Yes. Thank you, Teresa. And that's one of the things that you need to let them know. This is something that we haven't done before. We haven't asked our patients to have an oral rinse before they get any procedures done. And we're not here to tell you which rinse is better than that, because you guys, you're the dental experts when it comes to clinical. So you decide what rinse is appropriate. But I know a lot of my clients are instituting that rinse. And it's something that, again, you just need to be prepared to have those conversations, because patients may be freaked out. Why are you giving me this to rinse now? What is different? So if you allay their concerns on the front end and you let them know some things are going to be different, it's not going to be a surprise.
You know, and something I just thought of is we all know somebody that is just thinking that this is the biggest nothing burger ever, and why are we taking all of these precautions, and it's not a big deal. And this is not the time to get into it with your patients. You know, just nod and say, I know, I hear you, and then just move on. Engaging with that is going to be something you don't want to get into. So, and they'll be out there. You'll get lots of conversations about that. Lynne, did you want to go over this slide?
Yeah,
I can take it.
Well, it comes back to the patient. You can go ahead and take the first couple if you like.
Okay, yep. And so for some of you that are listening, Lynn and I did prepare for this, but sometimes I just get really excited and just keep going. So Lynn will definitely take some of this too. And I just want to take over, right? Okay, so some of the conversations, and you will hear in my voice that I am really kind of very bubbly and almost like jokey with the patients. I've always been like this. And it's been very helpful with patients. Even though they're grumpy, I'm still going to be very bubbly with them. And the reason being is that it's harder for somebody to get mad at you when you're being very nice. So with all of these conversations, I want you to take an uplifting tone, not a doom and gloom tone. So we wanted to give you some conversations to share with your teams. And with all of these conversations that we give you, it's so important to go back and practice these. Everything Lynn and I are going to go over is not going to fly out of your mouth right away. The handout that we'll make available to you will have all of these conversations, and I want you to go back and practice it. They're just not going to come out the way that you think. So your safety is our concern, Mrs. Jones. It's going to look a little different in our office when you come in. You know, I'll have a mask, you'll be able to recognize me, but you know, Jean might pass you in the hallway and you may not know it's her. We'll definitely walk you through everything that you're going to see. Since we have made some changes, you know, please ask if you have any questions. We're here for you. If you are wondering why we're wearing this, and if you're wondering why the tray setup looks different, let us know. We're happy to answer any of the questions. And now this is for your chatty patients. I'd like to catch up with you. I really would, but we have to keep our, to a minimum. We have to keep patients separated. And so maybe next time we can catch up, but I got to shoo you out the door right now. I'll see you later. And I would say it like that just because they're used to me being like that. So Lynn, is there a different way that you would phrase that?
Again, I agree with you. The more positive you can be. And we know our patients. We know their personalities. And don't forget that. They're looking at you as the calm influence through all of this. So have fun with it. And joke around with them because they've been locked up in the house for weeks. And this may be the first time they've gotten out of the house other than the grocery store. So have fun with it, have fun with it and be personable like you normally would with your patients. But have that feeling of, when have we ever taken your temperature, Mrs. Smith? This is different. And I can't just have you hanging around. We'll catch up later. That kind of thing. I think that's really going to be key. I mean, be friendly, but you got to be firm with it and shoo them out the door. But Teresa, I think you'd agree with me. The big one is going to be this last question on the slide is how do we deal with the fact that the powers that be said, why isn't dentistry essential?
So that is, I think you should have a conversation with the team because yes, a patient's going to say to you, I hear you're not an essential service. I've gone in to see my salon before I get to see you. I had my nails done before I could come see you. And so you need to have conversation about that. And you have to figure out what that is because every state has been different, right? So make sure that you have that before the patient asks you because, you don't want to say something like, well, because it's your teeth, that's why it's essential. That's not going to do it. So let's have better conversations than that. So besides the patient conversations, now we have to have all these financial conversations. And the reason being is that cash flow now is going to matter more than ever. And that's something that we have realized big time, and dentist owners, if you're on the call right now, you know what I'm talking about. We have decided that, in the past that we would collect as much as we can and protocols were firm, but a little bit squishy, right? Now we have to make sure that cash flow is king and we have to get our protocols in place because we don't want to be in a situation where we have the money, but it's sitting in accounts receivable. And so we really don't have the money. So cash flow matters now more than ever before, and we both agree that utilizing third-party financing is a good way to go. Let somebody else take the risk for you. And payment plans, in some areas you may need to extend out your payment plans, in-house payment plans. I've never been a fan of in-house payment plans, but sometimes you might need to go out 2 or 3 payments, especially if it's a trusted patient. But I would be very careful with that because it is, it's a huge risk that you're taking.
Absolutely. I mean, like you said, it's a risk. And at the same time, you're not a bank, you're a dental office, and we don't want you to be a bank.
Right.
But for operatory processing, one of the things that we've talked about again is technology. And if there's ever been a time for you to be able to institute the things that you've always wanted to do with your patients, I think now is the time to do it. Because I know I've heard from my clients that say, I wish, Lynn, we could get them to pay at the front, but they're never going to pay before they get back to the operatory. Guess what? Try it now, because we want contactless everything, right? So use technology to be able to have online payments, be able to have either a pay now button on your website, or expect patients to pay what they need to when they schedule their appointment or when they get there that day. It's okay to ask that, because you don't want them congregating at the front. Again, Teresa and I just went over, you need to shoo them out the door, right? So they can't sit there and want to talk to the receptionist leaving and taking payment. So we want to do that on the front end as much as possible. But this is, again, they may be a little scared of paper too.
Well, speaking of paper, the claim form, right? We all love the dental claim form. I'm the weird one. I actually like the dental claim form and the insurance and all of that. But I want to warn you that we are in an unprecedented time where we have, I think it's over 30 million jobless claims now. And what that means is a lot of people have lost their coverage. And if the market, and I'm not a seer, Lynn's not a seer, whatever it decides to do, if we are still reaching peak unemployment, then that means a lot of your patients will not have coverage. So I urge you to double check whether or not the patient is eligible before they come in. But I hate to tell you this, I'm pretty sure that you're going to get notifications later that the patient wasn't actually eligible and that you would need to return that amount. Now, if you're in network, unfortunately, you're bound by your contract. You can appeal it, but you need to send it back if it's requested, and then you can appeal it. Out of network, you can pretty much tell them, forget it, we tried, we did our best, and you got to go collect it from the patient now. But is that a pain in the butt? Absolutely. Every insurance coordinator knows when they get that request for a refund, it's not a fun day. Now,
right.
We talked about we talked about wanting to stretch out the treatment and the payment plans. And from a treatment coordinator point of view, this is what I did for years. I would gauge whether or not the patient was ready to go full steam ahead with all of the treatment. I'm going to go out on a limb and be really confident here and tell you patients are going to want to phase out their treatment. Because if they don't have insurance, they definitely are going to look at the numbers, right? And if they do have insurance and they're working still, they're having a hard time, making sure that everything's running at the practice or their office. They're working from home. They may not have the time to get everything done. And this is the time when many people pay attention to that $1,000 yearly benefit. And although we don't work with the yearly benefits, we don't schedule according to that. We have to schedule according to the patient. If the patient wants to take it at that rate, we have to do that because they're the ultimate client there. You may also run into in November, December, people that know they're going to be losing their coverage, and against end of the year, they're going to want you to get everything done. Well, we have to be real careful with that because we can't fudge any of the dates. And I'm already hearing from offices now where patients are coming in and saying, I lost my job, I'm good till the end of the month. But can we schedule something on the 5th or the 6th and then just backdate it? And you have to be really strong in saying, we can't do that. That's actually fraud. And I'm sorry, I wish I could, but we can't. We also need to be very positive in letting them know that they have benefits available and that we are there to help. So we are what I like to call the benefits whisperers. We know how insurance works in the office, and so we need to be able to do the translating. Now more than ever, the offices that have insurance gurus in their own office, they're going to shine. So we talked about clinical team members shining, the insurance gurus, they're going to shine at this time. Now, here's what we've been running into since we've reopened, and we're talking about the fact that many people think they have coverage, but it's been canceled. So some of the conversations I'll have with them is, how have things been at your office? Has your HR did your HR department shut down for a little bit? And if they say, yeah, it was really running a skeleton crew, that's a heads up that the HR department probably hasn't been reporting accurately who's eligible and who's not for coverage. And so you may get something from them saying, we need the money back. So I also make sure to tell the patient, look, we've had a lot of issues with benefits and eligibility recently. People think they're covered and they're not. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that. And if anything comes up, we'll definitely let you know. I don't like surprise patients, and this is part of not surprising them.
Okay, charges for PPE.
Now-
This isn't a hot topic at all, is it, Teresa?
No, not at all.
When we were putting this together, we were talking, okay, it's like Shakespeare, to charge or not to charge for the PPE.
Yeah.
You know, there are obviously different ways to look at this situation. I know for some of my clients, I've talked with them, if you're uncomfortable with doing this because you consider it a cost of doing business, then let's look at your fees. And let's see how your fees are across the board. Others are going to look at it the completely opposite and say, no, I'm happy with my fees, but I want to be able to charge for the extra PPE. Teresa, you have some feelings on that?
I did. So I have my own feelings, and then I have what I want to share with you. So my own feelings really don't matter, right? So I get that email, Lynne does too.
You.
What do you think we should do? Yeah, and I'm not your office, right? So you have to know your numbers, you have to know your protocol. And believe me, you know your patients better than anyone. So some of you are like, heck no, my patients won't pay. And is that something you really want to deal with right now? It's up to you. That's why we can't tell you whether or not to charge. So we gave you two options. If you raise your rates, I gave you some verbiage here. So rather than, if you're deciding to charge a fee, I actually have those backwards. I apologize for that. So rather than raise our rates across the board, we decided to implement a per appointment charge. And that would be more fair to you. We didn't want to go ahead and jack our fees up for that. We would rather just do a charge for each appointment so that, you know, it would be more fair to you. Now, if you're deciding to raise the rates, and for a lot of out-of-network offices, this is really where they're going with it because they have the flexibility to do that. We took a look, and so I would say to them, you know, we looked at our numbers and we decided that we really just don't have any other choice, and we did have to raise our rates for that. So for the procedures, but whenever somebody questions you about the rates or your fees, I need you to be really comfortable when you answer them, because there's nothing like somebody saying to you, you know, hey, why is this oil changed so much? And the person on the other side would go, I don't know. Yeah, it's really expensive. That's why I don't get my oil changed here. That's not what we want to say, right? So make sure everybody's on the same page when it comes to how we're going to charge and what the amount is that we're going to charge. So the reality is a lot of our patients are going to have to discuss finances. That's just the new normal. Everybody, it's not as free-flowing as you think. I know we'd love to have Jeff Bezos as a patient in our office, but the reality is there's only one that gets to have it. We don't have those patients, right? So, and what I'm hearing too, the phone's been ringing off the hook for me because people want to know, should they go out of network now because of all of the cost increases? Again, I don't know whether or not it's right for you. There's a whole bunch of factors that get involved with that. But if you do go out of network, guess what? That's a whole different set of financial conversations you're going to have with the patient. And I am, you know, the one good thing about COVID is that it gives us now the excuse to do things the way we want to do, as Lynne said earlier. So if you're deciding to go out of network now, this is a perfect time to say, you know, we just tried to make it work and we had to make this decision. I'm so sorry it's impacting you, but we're going to walk you through and make sure that you know exactly what your financial responsibility is. So we're sorry we had to do this, but COVID has kind of forced us to do this. So COVID is the great excuse right now for any of the changes you want to make in your practice. Now, I will say, Lynne and I have been doing this for a long time. So everything that just kind of flew out of my mouth came out fairly naturally. It wasn't always like that. So I just want you to know you are going to need to practice this. We needed to practice in our lifetimes, right, as treatment coordinators. It's not going to come out as smoothly as it did before, as it did with me, because I've been doing it a long time. You'll get there. You'll absolutely get there. You just need to practice. And now I know Lynne loves her membership plan, so I wanted to turn that over to you.
Well, and to piggyback on what you said, I think it's one thing for one team member to be able to practice things, but I think what we're finding out and what Teresa and I have been talking about this whole time is I think the whole team is going to need to be more concerned and better at having all of these conversations. So the one thing when you're dealing with a team is everybody needs to be consistent. I'm not saying I want little robots talking about things and saying the things exact same way, but there should be the same similar bullet points that you guys are going to cover, but say it in your way. So I think everybody needs to know how to answer these questions, because you may get hit with them completely in the clinical setting when you're not used to getting those there, you know, versus from the admin side. So membership plans and third-party financing, that's one of the things that it gives your patients options. We all want our patients to be taken care of and their oral health taken care of, or else we wouldn't be in dentistry. Let's face that. So how do we make them take advantage of that? And how do we give the barriers away from getting the treatment taken care of? So these are just options for you to think about. If you haven't created a membership plan, there are plenty of companies out there. You can do it in-house. You can do it a lot of different ways. There are plenty of third-party financing out there as well. But look at options for your patients, I guess is what Teresa and I are trying to say, is let's get our patients taken care of. And then for your clinical team members, this really is an opportunity to shine, because treatment care coordinators, we know that the clinical team, we know dental assistants, as soon as a doctor leaves the op, they're being asked, hey, do I really need to get that taken care of? You're already influencing treatment, and maybe you realize that and maybe you don't. But this is your opportunity as dental assistants to completely shine and show what you can actually do. I mean, being able to take payment chairside, that's another option as well.
Real quick, we're having so much great engagement in the Q&A field. We also have some people raise their hand. And so we're going to intentionally leave about 12 or 14 minutes, somewhere around there, Teresa and Lynne, to answer questions. And so please go ahead and ask your questions. We will do our best to get to them. Thank you.
So with financial conversations, my overall philosophy when I'm talking to a patient about money is that I don't want them to feel like this is weird for you too. They don't want to feel like they're the only ones that need to have this different payment plan made or this amount financed. So I like to let them know that we've done this all day, every day. We're familiar with this. This is what we're here for. But I also, when we put it in the box there for you, don't assume that they need options. Let them tell you or indicate to you that they need options. You'll be surprised. There's still a lot of people out there with really good jobs and really good income. And I don't want to sit there and make payment plans for somebody who can just go ahead and charge the whole thing. So make sure that you're using your intuition and getting that straight. So anytime that I'm having a conversation with a patient and they're giving me some pushback and they're like, oh my gosh, this is so expensive, you know, I use a lot of the sympathy language, which is, you know, I understand. We're hearing it from others as well. You know, we work with insurance benefits all the time. We try to get them as close as we can, and we're pretty good at it. Many patients end up using third-party financing, so this is something we do a lot. I'm happy to help you with that. Now, are they at risk? And that's something that is a clinical call. If they're at risk, they may not want to come in as many times as, like, you know, doing tooth-by-tooth dentistry. It may be health-wise more advantageous to have one longer appointment to take care of all of that. So you may want to suggest that. And why are you asking me to pay this much? Well, I hate to tell you this, but dentistry is expensive. No, don't say that. But what we're saying is, you know, we've had a lot of changes to our protocols, and I know in the past we just collected, you know, maybe a half or a portion of it. But because of COVID and all the new protocols that we have, we must make this change. And you know, maybe even make an exception that this time will allow you to make 2 payments, but you need to be firm going forward that this is not what, we're not going to go back to the old ways of where we can bill insurance and then send you a bill later. So that last line, practice that last line a lot. I know when we went out of network in my office years ago, this was what I said all the time. I know we always billed you before, but we just can't do that anymore. I'm sorry. And just be firm and assumptive, right? So, Lynne, any thoughts on this, or you want me to move on to the next slide?
Let's move on, because if Jim's correct, I think we're going to have some Q&A here. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So
with payment on the operatories, and this is one of the things that I wanted to make sure that Teresa and I included, because there are a lot of my clients that are starting to do this because they like the idea of it. So let me hit the highlights of this real fast for you. Again, you can see at the bottom in the square, all team members should know how to do this. Treatment planning. We know that dental assistants can put those in the computer, but I want them to learn how to do the rest of the process and actually talk about the money, because that was the missing point, being able to do that on the operatory. When you're doing treatment planning to begin with, Teresa mentioned it before, don't have a bias towards certain patients. patients will pay for things that they value. And don't forget that, because we know the connection of the mouth and the health of the body. So these are things that you guys should be having these conversations anyway. Just we're wanting you to package it in a different way so that you can string it all together and tie a bow on it. That's what we're asking you to do. So there's some of my clients that don't want to do that, and they're wondering, do we want the administrative team to go to the op? Do we want to go to the consultation room? What exactly are we looking for? And I think a lot of that, to be just bluntly honest, is going to depend on how much PPE you have. Teresa mentioned in the beginning, cross-training or cross-contamination. You've got to make some real hard decisions on that and be able to teach the team members accordingly to what's going to work for your practice. Again, you've got to make this customizable for what your needs are. And the payment terminals and the operatory, there's also text-to-pay technology. There's also, we know you got a computer on the operatory, so log onto your website. If you have a pay now button, take advantage of that. So use everything at your disposal, all the tools in your tool belt to be able to handle all of these situations.
So here's what is amazing about COVID. Actually, one of the things that's amazing about COVID is that it has really made it front and center in our healthcare world. So teeth now are important because we started to realize that if all of our extractions and infections went to the ER, then we were not helping to flatten the curve. And so dentists were called upon to help flatten that curve, right? So what I want you to think about now is that there's a lot of people that have woken up to the fact that the mouth is connected to the body. We've been joking about that for years and years, but for some doctors, they're now seeing, we really didn't need, medical doctors, I'm sorry, they're seeing, we really didn't need to see that tooth, that infection in the ER. They could have handled that at the dental office. And we're like, yes, that's what we're here for, right? So maybe we're getting a little bit more of referrals from the medical side. But what I have been reading, I read a lot of medical blogs, is that finally they're realizing that we can help with overall healthcare, which is really nice. Now, what that means for you is that the medical history form that we are always filling out needs to be updated, and it needs to be really clear so that you know all of the comorbidities that exist, because the patients are going to ask you, I have this, this, and this. I'm worried about COVID. Is there a risk in your office? And now, my administrators, this is not on us, right? Thankfully. The clinicians are going to have to be the ones to answer this, and they're going to have to be very confident in their conversation. So for my admin people who are on the call, because we're admin, not clinical, one thing that you should know is that the more comorbidities or illnesses that a patient has as a whole makes them more of a risk. So that's why the clinical team is going to want to do as much as they can in one visit to minimize risk, and that's typically the conversations that they have. But this, for my hygienists that are in the room, or my treatment coordinators, what I want you to think about too is this is a really good time to hammer home that whole inflammation discussion that you've been having for years. This is a good time to bring it back up and say, in light of COVID, I know we've talked about this a lot, but I want to just make sure that because we've done scaling and root planing on you before, because you're still under maintenance, this may be an issue. You do have an active infection and you do have inflammation. So this might be something for you to pay attention to. Keep coming in, and we are going to monitor that for you. But yes, that's an uncomfortable conversation to have, but now is the time to do it. And my hygienists that are lathering at the mouth to do this, you're going to be great at it because you've been saying this all along, and now finally they're going to listen to you, right? So, and now preparing for the patient. This is where, Lynne just loved this slide, so I'm going to let her take it, right? You love this part.
All right. I am so ready for this because this is the whole team, and I love teams because I know you guys know I coach basketball, so I'll talk all day about this. So Jim, rein me in if I need it time-wise.
No problem. Go for it.
So for the team, I always talk about R&R, which is role and responsibilities. And it's never been more imperative that everybody understand their role and exactly what's expected, because everybody needs to work on this together, and they need to trust that everybody's doing their part within the team so that everybody else can make sure that they're taking care of the patient from beginning to end. Have that team meeting and explain all of those things. Everybody needs to hear who is responsible for what. So I mean nitty-gritty detail, talk about it within your teams. In addition to that, don't be confused. If you show any confusion about something, or if a patient asks you something that you really don't know the answer to, you got to show your confidence, because confidence in this arena and environment that we're in equals trust. And if anything else, you want to make sure that your patients trust coming to your practice. It's going to be paramount for you, and the perception of that as well. Practice makes perfect. You really need to practice. I mean, we've joked about how long is it going to take us to change PPE, but we're talking about practicing your verbiage, which Teresa and I have been talking this whole webinar about. These are things that may or may not come naturally to every member of your team. Great opportunity for all of you to role play and to be able to talk amongst yourselves and make it smooth. Make it sound like it's going to roll off your tongue, and be comfortable with what you're saying. And brainstorm with your team, making sure that everybody is consistent. And I think I mentioned that before, but the patient expectations are going to be totally different for you. So look at those, everything that you're doing in your office from a patient perspective. When it comes to social media, take pictures. I mean, COVID's been a great opportunity for you guys to have some wonderful custom-made posts. Take pictures of what you've done in your office, what you guys look like with your PPE on. Do a virtual tour and walk through your office. And by golly, if you put that kind of money, like I know you did, into your PPE and all the changes that you have in your operatories, show it off. I mean, this is a huge investment that you've made, and this is now for the effort of protecting your patients. Show that investment, be proud of it, and show it to everybody what you've done. But with specialists, then this is going to be key. Tell your referring doctors about your protocols. But for those of you who know me, you know ultimately I'm competitive. Because of your investment in your practices, this is a competitive advantage that you may have over other referring general dentists to specialists. So brag about it. It's okay to toot your horn, okay?
Yeah.
So Teresa, do you want to add anything to this, or I'll wrap up?
No, I did actually. When you were talking, I just had a thought, and that is, you're making all of these videos of what's going on in the office, for your roles and responsibilities. While you've got the video camera out for your purpose internally, why don't you record someone putting on all of their PPE? Because I guarantee you, when you have new people coming on board, you're going to have to teach it all over again. And if there's one thing managers really dislike doing, is giving the same lesson over and over again. So it just popped in my head when you were talking, Lynn. That's all.
That's a great idea.
Thanks.
All right, Jim, I think it sounds
Sure.
like you've been mentioning to us that you are ready with some different things to discuss and get us rolling here.
Yeah, if you just want to advance to the next slide. In a moment here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to open up for question and answer. And I'll moderate that. Real quickly, just to let everyone know, unsolicited, Lynne and Teresa showed a picture of curbside check-in within CareStack. If this is something that you want to learn more about, we're going to have a virtual trade show on Monday at these two times, and you can register directly at darbydental.com. It's not a one-on-one demonstration. No one's hotboxing you in the corner. It's a group demonstration, much like this. You can come and go as you leave, as you wish. And it's a great way to learn about what CareStack has to offer. So thank you for that slide. And again, register at darbydental.com. The last thing we want to share with you commercially before we get to this point of Q&A is if you've learned enough about CareStack, and this is one of the features that we offer, we're having an Act Now special for people that are attending this webinar, which is subsidized by both CareStack and Darby, and we'll provide to you the months of June, July, and August at no charge. So you can reach out, you can reply to any of the emails that you received from Darby about this meeting if you want to learn more, or you can go to carestack.com or darby.com to learn more if that's the route you want to go. So now we're going to move over into the Q&A. We do have some people with their hands up. I want to get to some of these questions, kind of, ladies, in chronological order, if that's all right.
Sure. Yeah.
The first one we have from Ashley is, we're making a welcome back letter to our patients. Should we let them know the team is pre-screened every day as well for peace of mind to them?
Absolutely.
Lynn?
Absolutely. You want to be able, and that question I think really comes down to, you want to allow them to know the safety precautions that you're doing. And, back to what Teresa mentioned about documentation, you need to take those every day, and you need to make sure that you document that everybody is safe.
It's also a great social media opportunity too, is when you take your morning, when you have your morning meeting and you take your temperatures, just take a quick picture of it. Everything you do PPE wise is a great social media opportunity because your patients are looking for that.
Well put. I'm going to combine Kate and Rose into one. The questions are kind of around the rinse. The first part is from Kate, there's no evidence that rinses help reduce the virus load, or research that's saying it can't help or hurt. In your experience, what's the reasoning for requiring rinses?
So, you know, it's funny that she brings that up because yes, I've also read the same thing, that there hasn't been any substantive research on that, but it is something that has been out there. And if your doctor is one of those that does think it is, it does have some efficiencies. I'm not going to argue with that. So if you're in an office that doesn't believe that that's going to help at all, then just don't incorporate that into it. If you do, you may want to explain the reasoning as Lynn said. But yeah, no, I know about the research and all that. And it is, you know, we do some interesting things in dentistry, and the research sometimes catches up to us later. This has been studied for a long time though. So it is worth a talk with between clinical and admin to talk about why you're doing or why you're not doing.
And so I guess it goes part and parcel. And Lynn, I'll direct this to you. What if a patient doesn't comply on pre-rinsing? Do we have the right to reject treatment if they don't comply?
Oh, well, I think it comes back to the patient expectations. Did you let them know what the expectation was going to be and what they were going to need to do when they came into the practice? I think it goes back to also how the doctor wants to handle that. That is something that they're going to need from a practice standpoint to make that clinical decision. What does that mean? Is that a barrier to getting treatment done, or you know, what's their belief system on that? And I think that's an individual answer to that question, much like Teresa said.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to be bold here and try to see if we can answer people's who have their hands up. This doesn't always work. A quick disclaimer here. So Sonia Warren, I'm going to take you off of mute, but you've got to take yourself off of mute too as well. Otherwise, you're going to be speaking to yourself. Let's see. And maybe Pete, I think you're the host. You might be the only one who can do this. If you're still there, Pete, and you can open up Sonia Warren's line, please.
You got it.
So again, Sonia, you're going to be unmuted here, and then you have to unmute on your end.
Okay. So
We'll give it one more second. Yeah, so Sonia, you have to unmute your line on your end. Okay, we tried one. Let's try one more. I feel like a radio talk show host.
Okay.
Victoria, Pete, can you unmute Victoria? Oh, Sonia, you're there. Sonia, you got to speak up. Go for it. Okay. Pete, we'll try one more, and then we're just going to say everyone use the Q&A. Pete, can you unmute Victoria? And Victoria, on your end, you've got to unmute your line.
Yep. You're all set, Victoria.
Oh, you know, it's the fear of being on the webinar.
Yeah, I'm going to go crawl back into my hole. Let's go back to the traditional Q&A. So the next one is from Judy. Can we run credit checks for patients if extending credit for credit plans? Perspectives on that.
You want to take that, Lynn?
You know, as far as running credit checks, that's something if you have that availability, but you're getting into the legalities of the Fair Credit Act and other things. That's why a lot of people would prefer to have membership plans in-house versus checking credit apps individually. So it really depends on how you want to handle that. But whatever you choose, make sure that you're following all of your state regulations as well as your federal regulations and understanding what the impact of that law has on your practice.
The other side of that too is if you're using a third-party financing system and you want them to do the credit check because you want them to get financed through them, that's a great reason to use a third-party financing. And I'll give you a tip that was shared with me by a Care Credit rep because I didn't think about this, but right now we have a lot of people who have good credit right now that they may not have good credit in 2 months because they've lost their job, maybe they start getting behind on payments or whatever. So if you are able to get them to go ahead and apply and just get the line of credit, and this is with most third party, then you at least have that ready to go. Get them pre-approved now, and then they'll have that line of credit ready to go. I don't want to send through an application with somebody who doesn't have a line of income right now. So do it now when you can versus later.
Well put. I do want to make a plug for both Teresa and Lynne. I think it's important. You see their emails and their websites. Please follow them both on LinkedIn. That's really a great way to kind of get an understanding of where they're going to be speaking next and their contributions. And they've been super generous. This is really unpaid consulting for them. And I wanted, they're giving back to the dental community because a rising tide floats all boats. But I think it's important that you've seen the value from both of them. And if you're not working with them, you really should reach out to them. So I did want to mention that before we get too far along here. My next question is from Celia. You got it. My practice is mostly a PPO program and my fees are set. I cannot raise my fees. What can I do? And do you have any advice or suggestions for her?
I do. And so this is where I have to be a little bit blunt with you. And I'm saying it from a place of concern. So please understand that. But I've been talking to so many PPO offices, and what they're realizing now with the increased cost of PPE, you've got reduced chair time. You have expenses going up all over the place, right? So also, I will bet that you're going to have some human resources expenses as well, because you may have lost a team member or two. So everything has gotten exponentially more expensive for you. As a PPO provider, you have a slim margin already, right? This may be, and this is what I'm hearing from people, this may be the one that pushes you over the edge where you're actually operating in the red. And this is, I can't even tell you how many times I've had the phone call where they looked at their numbers and how do I get off of these plans? And first of all, I say, is this feasible? And when you really look at the numbers, if you are actually losing money being on that plan, it's not even an emotional decision anymore. It's a business decision. You cannot be in the red for every appointment. Right. Let's think about it this way real quickly. How much are you paying your hygienist, your team members and all that for 1 hour, 1 hour of hygiene? Now this is if you don't even come in for an evaluation because maybe they don't need it that time. For a PPO fee schedule, you're maybe getting between $70 to $97. When you look at your overhead, the cost of the hygienist, everything that's included, is that even covering your costs? I think I know the answer, but you're the only one who's going to know the answer when you're taking a look at it. So there's really no way to raise your fees. You're absolutely right, unless you do some negotiating. But this may be a good time to look in the mirror and say, is this the time to do what I've been wanting to do?
Thank you. Many questions here about, can they view this recording? Yes. Peter and the Darby team will have it at darbydental.com forthcoming here. Give them a day or so. And CareStack will also be hosting it under the resources sections as well. So question from Tricia. My boss is wondering about eliminating the checkout process to have less contact. He suggested maybe we print a walkout statement and send them out the door with it, or bill them. And your thoughts?
I'll take that.
Oh, no billing. Yeah, but no billing. Let's say that.
No billing, because I guess the question is why. You could be able to get the payment up front because you already know what their copay, if we're talking about an insurance standpoint, what they're going to owe that day. I'm a firm believer, like Teresa mentioned about cash flow, being able to get that into the practice right off the bat. I don't see the benefit of giving them a walkout statement and allowing them to pay that after the fact. What I would suggest is letting your doctor know, hey, are you aware that technology is there where we can go ahead and you can have a contactless payment, but you can do it on your website, or you can do text to pay, or you can do it a lot of different ways that you still get your money from a practice standpoint, and you're taken care of from a cash flow versus waiting longer to be able to get paid. Because our concern for you guys with cash flow being so important, we don't want your walkout statement to be on the bottom stack of the bills that patient has to pay. You've already done those services for them, so you should be getting paid.
Well put. Chasing AR is a no-no, right? I know you both are passionate about that. So question from Judy, do you have suggestions for a bonus system for a treatment coordinator? There's not relevant. I don't know where this fits in the conversation.
Oh no, it fits.
Oh.
It fits because of the extra additional duties that they're. So no,
yeah,
it fits.
Totally.
I see where she's going with it, but that is a hot potato, and I'm going to pass that to Lynne.
I was gonna volley it right back to you.
So gracious, Teresa.
No. So Lynne's actually working with more clients. I don't do as much consulting anymore. When I was consulting, I never had good experiences with bonuses, and that's why I think Lynne is better. to discuss that.
You know, when it comes to the bonus structure, and Teresa and I joke about that, but it comes back to philosophy. We're not one to tell your dentist the philosophy of running a business. And that's really where that comes down. And you know, if you look at it from that standpoint, that's where the column it's going to fit into. I know a lot of doctors love to give their team so much money, but from a business standpoint, can you afford to? So when it comes to a bonus structure, you're incenting on exactly what behavior. If you're asking somebody to do a job and that job is the way that it is. I mean, we could not have predicted this COVID environment at all. So asking somebody to do something extra or something different, there should always be that mindset of, I want to do my job to the best of my ability and help my team and my doctor the best that I can. So I would really start asking a little more questions on, is this the right person, or are they asking for more money just to do their job? It really depends on the purpose of the bonus structure. So that's, yeah, we could go down a big rabbit hole on that one.
Yeah, and you know, I would just say too, that's something that is, you know, our emails are listed on there. If you wanted to talk more about that, I mean, I hate to send it to you, Lynn, but I'm going to. I would definitely hit up Lynn with this because she's more active with a lot more clients, and she can walk you through it. Bonus structures are good and bad, but it does depend on the office.
Mm-hmm.
I think the last question we're going to take here, we're at the top of the hour, from Maria. What if the patient lost their PPO insurance during COVID, but they have not divulged that? What's your strategy or approach there, ladies?
Well, there's the what I want to do to them versus what I'm actually going to do to them, right? So, so the patients who come in and they know that they don't have the coverage, that to me is a big red flag that they're, number one, unethical, and number two, are not going to want to play by the rules of the practice. So when they'll come in, you'll do the work, and then you're going to have to chase them down for it. And you'll know right away because they won't return your messages and they won't return your calls. So what I would let them know ahead of time, and this is why we have that conversation, we've been having a lot of issues with people in eligibility, so I just want to let you know we may be coming back to you. Would you have it with every patient who has coverage? Yeah, I would. And that's to protect you from this. But the second you find out somebody doesn't have coverage, you need to get on the phone and you need to go fast and hard on them, because this is when patients ghost, right? So, and then the other part of that too is when they come in, I would want to have a real serious conversation with them about, you know, making sure that they pay for what they need to pay for up front. Now, I've been doing this a long time. I'm a lot more, I think, cynical than most people when it comes to patient behavior. But whenever that happened in our practice, back when I was a manager, whenever that happened in a practice, we were putting that patient on a cash-only basis. That was our protocol, and we did that because of experiences. And we really never saw the patient again because, honestly, that's shady. You know that's shady, right? So what we're doing is calling them out on the shadiness, right? So, yeah. That's how I would handle it.
I'd like to add something to that too, Teresa, because I think this is, again, because of COVID, this is a great opportunity for you to look at your financial policy that you already have put together and make sure that you make that as tight as you can, dot the I's and cross the T's, because if there's any expenses there that aren't taken care of because of insurance benefits, the patient is responsible. And that's okay to have. So make sure that you guys review your financial policies.
Yeah.
Ladies, thank you so much. We could probably go on for another hour here, and the attention's been great by our audience. Thank you for remaining here past our allocated time. On behalf of Darby and Jeff Daly and Pete Cerrone, I want to thank you both for the preparation and what you've invested in this. And I encourage all our participants, you have Teresa and Lynne's information here. Please reach out independent of this program to gain their experience. They've been super gracious. We'll also have a recording of this and a download, some material that they want to share at darbydental.com. And again, you should see that up in a day. If you don't see it up in a day, I'll send you Pete Cerrone's home address and you can go beat him up. But it should be up in a day. A lot of pressure there, Pete. But ladies, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And we hope that everyone stays safe and healthy. And thank you for your time this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Take care, everyone. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Right. Bye-bye.